something that is totally overlooked in personal branding. Most people don't even talk about it, but I will tell you, I promise you, and you ladies probably may already know this. The more you move into building your personal brand and starting your business and becoming an entrepreneur and getting out into the public, the more layers are going to be pulled back and the more of your experiences that have caused wounds. Hello, KJ. How are things going today?
They're good. How are you, Sonji?
I am doing well as always. Just been busy, busy, busy building my own personal and professional brand.
Hi.
So I've been busy, busy, busy. So a little birdie told me that that's what we're talking about today. So is that what we're talking about today?
Absolutely. I've noticed on Instagram, there's a lot of brand strategists, and you're starting to see that pop up, whether it's a coach or a strategist. There's a lot of people that are helping us understand brands now and what it means to be a brand. So we do have a guest today. Her name is Cheryl Pullins, and she is the Icon Activator. So I
Mm.
cannot wait to have her start talking to us about what it means to be a brand and how to do it. She's going to dive into a lot of information. So, hey, make sure if you're not driving, get your pen and paper out and start taking notes.
Ooh, icon activator. That's what I need. I need to be activated. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to hearing what she has to say.
We are so excited to have Miss Cheryl Pullins. And Cheryl is the Icon Activator. She's also the founder of her iconic empire. So we are going to learn so much from her today, especially with when we talk about branding now. And it's 2025. We've heard this word branding for, I guess, Cheryl, about maybe 20 years now. So yes, please, welcome to the show and tell us about yourself and help us understand more about branding.
Sure. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me here on your podcast and the Girlie Ladies podcast. And I love that name, actually, Girlie Ladies.
Thank you.
So just in terms of branding, so my focus is personal branding, which is a little different from the traditional branding that we hear most people talk about. Most times when people are talking about branding, they're usually talking about the visual aspect of it. They're talking about the logo, the website, the colors, all of those visual assets that you typically see. Now, of course, there's strategy that goes behind that. There are things that you do in the background to get to that point. But when you're building a personal brand, the visual aspect of branding is not the priority, I like to say. It's not the priority. The priority is you and your beliefs and your values and your vision and how you're showing up to the people that I like to say you've been called to serve. A lot of people call it target audience, all of those things. But how are you showing up to them authentically? So that's my very short spin and take on personal branding versus traditional branding.
Nice. I think that one of the things that I've noticed is when you're talking about branding, the first time I heard it was, I guess it's been about 20 years. You hear it with celebrities, and they're always trying to figure out, well, what's my brand and how am I going to kind of sell and market myself and what am I going to be involved with? And then all of a sudden that turned into now everyone having to have a personal brand and, taking care of themselves and putting their I almost feel like it's like a resume, basically. Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, it does. It does. it makes sense from the standpoint of, it's just like a resume. When you're sending a resume, I spent 20 years in HR, so I totally get this. So when you send a resume to an organization for potential employment, that is a snapshot for them to get to know you as much as they can about you and your skill and experience. So, building your brand is very similar. It's a snapshot of your audience getting to know you, um, about your values and what you believe and what you stand for, and the brilliance that you bring to the world. And it happens in snapshots. And a lot of those snapshots are through social media. That's why social media is so big when it comes to building your personal brand, because it's a way for people to experience you on a consistent basis.
So kind of walk us through what you do when someone comes to you and they say, I'm new at this, but I really want to get myself out there. It's almost like revamping yourself and remaking yourself. How do you help them?
So, the very first place I start with, I like to understand what their vision is. Like, what do they what do they want as a result of building this personal brand, putting this brand out in the world? What do you want it to do for you in terms of your vision? So the first thing we do is we cast vision. We talk about your dreams and your hopes and your desires and all the things, be it in your business, be it in your life, how much money you want to make, how many, v- vacations you want to take, all of those things. You lay out that vision, because then what we're going to do is we're going to lay your strategy, your personal brand strategy on top of that. So then that's where we get into discovery. And it really is more like a rediscovery. We go through this rediscovery of who you are, who you really are. And I talk a lot about this and understanding your identity and the truth of who you are, because there's some facets of us that, we just kind of fell into. We like me, I spent so many years in corporate America, and there were certain parts about me that were groomed by corporate, but they really weren't a part of who I was. So we talk about a lot of those. And a lot of the women that I've worked with, they've discovered the same things. They've discovered that, oh, I've been in this job for so long, I've worked for this company for so long, and I want to leave. I want to create a way to exit, and then they discover, you know what? I've done this piece, or I've acted this way, or shown up this way for so long, but it's really not me. So that self rediscovery is key, and it's vital to the development of their personal brand and the brand that they're going to put out into the world. So how I get started, those are like the two main things.
Nice. Is it just as far as branding, can it be for someone who maybe just wants to make a career change and go into something else? Or is it typically someone who says, "Oh, I want to start a business. I want to branch out on my own." Can it work for both?
Absolutely. It can. It can definitely work for both, because in the space of wanting to, maybe seek a new opportunity, and it could be a new opportunity within the organization you're in, or another organization. Developing that personal brand allows you to just hone in and get really clear on who you are and what makes you as fabulous as you are, and how do you communicate and articulate that. How do you position yourself for the opportunity that you want to pursue? So personal brand within an organization is really key. It's very, very key to helping you pursue your goals within an organization. just as much as it is if you are building your own business.
Oh, Cheryl, with our podcast, where basically our audience are 38-year-old women and up. And one of the things that we notice, because Sonji and I are both in our 50s, and I've really been experiencing this, I feel like lately, you're almost having to start a career all over again in your midlife. And you don't always know how to do that or what field to go in because it's almost like you hear women say, oh, it's like people are putting me out to pasture at a certain age and I
Mm,
can't do things anymore. And I almost feel like when we get to our 40s and 50s, that's when we know ourselves a little bit better and we're, experiencing new things. And it's like we get this whole nother wind behind us. But
mhm,
I feel
mhm.
like a lot of companies just almost feel like we're useless. It's not there anymore. So do you have a lot of women who come to you with that same, type of feeling that they're just being cast out slowly?
I actually haven't worked with a lot of women that feel as though they're being cast out. Most of the women that I've worked with are they want to leave. you know, they're ready for their second act. They're ready to move into the thing and doing the things that they've dreamt about doing while they were working in their organizations and in their careers. Um, However, I do understand and can see women of a certain age feeling as if they're invisible within the organizations that they're in, feeling unseen and unheard. So I totally, totally understand that um in that way. And that causes, of course, it causes some um anxiety, maybe concern. But then you start to think and go, okay, well, w- there's more to, what else in the world can I do? This is not this working in this organization. Yes, it is most likely a steady paycheck. It is you're guaranteed for the most part. You're guaranteed, pay every week, 2 weeks, once a month, whatever your frequency is. But you start to ask, is there more to life than this? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be absolutely there is. And then you want to get the courage and the bravery to start to pursue what that is for you because it's going to look different for everybody. So you start to go, okay, well, what is it that I love? I mean, what is it that I really love that I could do every day when I wake up? Because a lot of times in our careers, we got up every day and went to work because we were going to get paid. Right? But even in that, you discover there was something in there that you absolutely love that's been a constant theme your entire career. Like for me, it was being in the business of people. I loved the interaction and working with people. I worked in HR, you know, but being able to sit down and have conversations with people when they were stuck or challenged or whatever and helping them work through that. Now, mind you, I'm benefits, I'm working benefits and pensions. But to be able to encounter people like that on a regular basis, that's where I found that that's what I loved. So it's just an opportunity for you to explore and again do some self rediscovery.
So let's say you are ready. You want to build a personal brand. You're ready to move on to that next chapter. So what are the steps? What are the first steps that a woman should
Mhm,
take when she's
mhm.
decided that she's ready? What should she do?
Yeah, so that whole self rediscovery, uh, a lot of times we skip over that because we think we know ourselves. So we're like, well, I don't need to do. And what you discover is you don't know yourself as well as you think you do. Because if you started your career 20 years ago, you are not the same woman at all, right? So that is important. Not only is this self rediscovery important, within that, really exploring some of your own hidden traumas. Again, something that is totally overlooked in personal branding. Most people don't even talk about it, but I will tell you, I promise you, and you ladies probably may already know this. The more you move into building your personal brand and starting your business and becoming an entrepreneur and getting out into the public, the more layers are going to be pulled back and the more of your experiences that have caused wounds are going to be exposed. And you bring that into this building of your personal brand. And what you don't want to do is build on top of these unhealed, unaddressed wounds. So I know this might sound like kind of woo woo. It's, but it is so important and it is vital. So if you ask what are the steps, I believe with every fiber of my being that introspective work comes first. It comes first. And then you want to get into the strategy of what it looks like to build your personal brand. So you want to talk about your values, your beliefs, all of those things. There's a whole strategy that goes behind building a brand, be it a personal brand or a business brand. People always wonder why organizations pay $1 million, or $10 million for a rebrand, which they do. And they go, but they just changed the logo. But the work that goes behind changing that visual, that's where the investment is. So investing in the strategy of what it looks like. So when you pop out there, when you pop out to show them with your personal brand, right? You're going to be on brand. You're going to be on target. You're going to understand how to show up as your authentic self. You're going to know how to communicate the value that you bring to the marketplace. You're going to know these things because you've worked on this strategy. I've always likened it to when you plant seed in the ground and it takes a while and it does all this scientific stuff below the surface. And then however long later, you see the first sprout and then it eventually grows. And that's how I liken building your personal brand. You put a lot of that scientific work in the ground out of sight before you get to having your colors and your logo. Some people don't even have a logo, it just depends on your personal thing. So self-rediscovery, building your personal brand strategy and what that looks like. Then you want to get into the whole social media and communication strategy. And that's where and really it's kind of more, I would say marketing, because social media is really just a component of that. So getting to what the marketing is now also, and this is where it could veer off in different ways. If you're going to offer products and services or programs or whatever you're offering, what's going to be that umbrella that you're going to put all of that under? How are you going to structure your personal brand in a way using true sound brand architecture in a way that allows you to deliver the all the things in all the different ways that you want to deliver? So the big components would be that self-rediscovery, building that brand strategy, and then depending if you want to offer those products and services, figuring what that is, maybe having a signature offer that you offer consistently, but then also having that marketing strategy, how you're going to communicate, how you're going to show up, what social media platforms you're going to be on and all of those things.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So once you've done the introspection and you have found your pain point, let's say I'm just throwing something out there. Let's say you've struggled with the art of negotiation and you've spent your entire life being walked over both at work, at home, friends, family, and then you develop the skill and you want to teach the world that skill. So how do you
Mhm.
splash out into the world? Is it with a website? Is it with a podcast? Is it on social media? What's the best way to make your big splash?
So, let me say this, my approach to this is to do what's in alignment with you authentically, because that's gonna create the best splash. So for some people, it is podcast. It is having a podcast, because you can have a podcast and a lead, some type of lead magnet without a website. You can literally jump right in. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people build very, very successful and financially successful personal brands with a podcast before podcasting was even a thing, you know, and no website, you know, no, no way to do podcast distribution. They were just doing the podcast and putting it somewhere where people could listen. So I think it depends on the person and how they want to make their splash. For some people, it is having a website and all the fabulous photos. But again, with that, you want to make sure you have a solid, sound strategy, because a website and pretty pictures without a strategy is not going to get you where you want to go, you know. So yes, it could be a podcast, um for some people it's a blog, and whatever the new blogging methodologies are now, Substack, things like that, Medium. So it could be that, it could be building a community. A lot of the platforms now, you can build community, and community is a thing. So it could be in building community. I think the person has to decide what's going to be the best way for them to show up and make that big splash. And when you do, I don't care what platform you're on, in terms of it's a website or podcast or community, you're going to be loud and proud about it. So that's how you make a big splash. S- Splash in the place that you feel most authentic.
Make a big whale splash.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Love that you came from, a corporate and a HR background and then going into this, because it seems like a natural, fit for you to still be able to work the HR aspects of it and, take your strength, which is relationship building, to basically help people get to where they want to go. So when someone decides to work with you, um, can you like walk us through, maybe without, of course, saying names? Tell us how you worked with someone and what the outcome was from that. Like when the person came to you, what were they looking to do?
Mhm.
And just kind of walk us through what it looks like as you're working with someone on, a strategy to build their brand, and then what was the outcome?
Let me think. I have a few of those stories. Let's see. So there was one person, one woman. She came to me. She had an interior design business. She had been in business for a while, and she was already hitting $1 million when she came to me. So I, in my mind, I'm thinking, you are already $1 million. What? What could I possibly help you with? But that was a part of my own evolution in terms of the contribution that I can make to women that have already even hit those milestones. So she came to me saying, yes, I am already generating $1 million in revenue, but I'm not attracting the audience or the client that I want to attract now. And she wanted to attract very high level individuals, um, especially because she had a little bit of experience with working with major athletes. And so she's an interior designer, and she had done some work with major athletes, and she wanted to do more of that. So, because for her, that was it was a higher price point, so she wouldn't have to do as many, wouldn't have to have as many projects. So I said, okay. So what we did was we worked on her positioning. So the purpose was to reposition her as a luxury, high level interior designer because her work was stunning. I mean, it was incredible. But if you went to her website, it looked more like, oh, okay, So, and it really was just because of how the imagery was positioned on the website and all of the verbiage and copy and things like that. So the first thing I did was I went to her website because that's where a lot of her imagery lived, and I did an analysis of her website, and I mean, I picked it apart. I really picked it apart. And so in doing that, I said, okay, these are all the things that need to be changed, period. And then I rewrote all of her copy. We did all of the changes. We updated. I mean, we did a lot of work on that. And this was also going to be a lead in into her elevating her personal brand. So we started a little different. We started with her business and then we segued into elevating her personal brand. So we made all of the updates and she had her website team come in and we did all the changes and they rolled out a new website. And 2 weeks, and I know this because she came back and she told me, 2 weeks, she said, Cheryl, 2 weeks later, I got 2 6-figure builds to the type of client that I wanted to start working with. She said 2 weeks, because one of the things that we did was like her imagery was buried. I mean, she had beautiful redesigns and she did builds as well. It wasn't just doing the interior, but she also did builds as well. And everything was buried and nothing was showcased properly and the language was off and all of those things. And 2 weeks later, after it was rolled out, she got the results that she was looking for. And so then after that, we started working on her personal brand because she wanted to do more speaking and now she wanted to position herself as a speaker and a philanthropist. So then that's the direction we went with her with that. So that's one of my fun stories to tell, is that in 2 weeks time she got results.
So it sounds like the main problem with that situation was just her overall presentation. Her overall
Hmm.
presentation was lacking. It needed to
Hmm.
be cleaned up. What
Yeah, it was her positioning in terms of, how she wanted to be positioned in the marketplace.
So what are you finding to be some of the common mistakes that people are making, that women are making when they're trying to build their personal brand? With this particular case, it was, the presentation was off. What are some of the other common mistakes that you see with women trying to build?
So some of the common mistakes, not knowing how to communicate and articulate the value you bring. That's that's a very common mistake. Another common mistake, underpricing, charging for things or for your service. For example, I tell people, if you are present, physically present, that is an automatic premium. That's a premium. That's not a $97 offer. That's an automatic premium. So I know a lot of mistakes people make when it comes to that is their pricing. Another mistake that a lot of people make is they do put the visuals before the strategy. So they go do the photo shoot, they go get the logo, and they get the website, and they have it out there and they put it on social media, and they're like, oh, look at my website. And then after the first couple days, you're not getting any sales. Nothing's converting, nothing's happening because there's no strategy. So those would be like the top three things, the top three mistakes that they're making. There are a few others, but those are definitely the top three.
So how do you help someone determine their value if they're undervaluing themselves with their pricing and some other things? How do you help them to discover
So
that?
I again, and you're probably going to be like, "Girl, really?" I take them all the way back to that self-rediscovery. Because you have to see the value in yourself and what you bring, your knowledge, your skill, your expertise. So we do an inventory of your skills. We do an inventory of your knowledge. I have you write down those defining moments or curate those defining moments that took place in your life that helped you to get to this place. We talk about your experiences. I mean, we dump everything and put it on the table because once you start to do that and you start to remember, because a lot of us, we've forgotten half the stuff that we've done, the accomplishments we've made, we've forgotten. But once you remember, you go, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. And then that belief portal within yourself begins to open up. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So now when you say, you know what? My price is no longer this, but it's now this. You are saying it with the full weight of your belief behind you. And that means something. And it's very, very powerful. So you're probably, anytime you ask me something, in a lot of cases, I'm going to take you back to that because if that foundation of self belief is not there, it is going to touch on everything that you work to accomplish, and it's going to be a silent self-sabotage. So you can do all the tactics, all the strategies you want, but if you have some of those missing pieces from that self rediscovery work and you haven't flipped tables over with it, it's going to be a long climb.
So, Cheryl, I wanted to ask you when you talk about taking inventory and, going back and looking at all of your successes when you're thinking of trying to basically put a price on what you've done, can that work as well for someone who's still, let's say, staying in just a regular work environment, but they're wanting to go for maybe a new position and they're trying to present themselves in a way where, I know, hey, I'm worth this amount of money. Would you still suggest that they do the same thing, just going back over their career and looking at, what they've done and then presenting that in a way to try to, again, raise their income? Because maybe not everyone wants to own a business, but you may have someone just trying to climb their corporate ladder where they're at. They may love their company, but just wanting to go for those higher positions. Would that strategy still be the same, or would you suggest something a little bit different, like tailoring it a little different for that environment?
Well, I think definitely you're going to tailor it just a bit, but I think the basic bones of it is still there. So looking at your accomplishments that you've had within the organization, have you gone to school? Have you gotten certifications? Have you what are some tangible things that they can look at and see that you've done? Have raises, even if you've gotten increases along the way. Maybe now you've topped out of where you are and you want to go into a new position because it's higher level income. So I think really sitting and just going through that same process a bit, but tailoring it, of course, to being within an organization, I think it's key and I think it's vital. And I think it's something that you should do anyway, because it's going to bolster your own belief in yourself. So even when you show up to say, I want to apply for this promotion, or I want to move on to another department, or whatever it is you want to do. Now you're going to do it with a greater sense of belief in yourself and your ability. You're going to stand tall and firm in who you are, and you're not going to just go take anything, you know? So, yeah, I think it's still important even within an organization.
You've mentioned the word belief a few times. Do you ever have to start with mindset coaching?
Yeah.
Because that sounds like that's the key and the core of
Yeah.
what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely mindset coaching, coaching around money. And that's kind of when I said the whole self-rediscovery, and that's what it kind of encompasses a lot of that, because there's the mindset piece, so that self-belief and all of those things. There's the money piece, because some people are challenged with charging, at a certain level. And there's also the whole emotional wounds and baggage. That's a whole nother piece. And when you're positioning yourself using your personal brand, all of that is just very, very key and vital.
So, what exercises do you kind of deploy? I know you take them back to the beginning, to the foundation, but are there any type of like specific or tangible exercises that you put your clients through?
Well, it depends. It depends on what we're doing. So I mentioned in the mind, so there's the mindset, there's the money. One of the things I do with the money coaching aspect of it and is again, it's what was their life like growing up when it came to money? So I have them journal a lot. I have them ask themselves a lot of questions. What did you hear about money when you were growing up? Like, I can remember when I was younger and my mom clearly saying certain things about money, and having this a kind of scarcity um perspective around income, which I totally understood because of the whole backstory with her, right? So, um in the money coaching aspect of this, having them explore their experiences with money, their own personal experiences with money. Because again, you can't get to where they probably want to go financially until they start to address that. So that's one of the exercises that I have them do is to answer questions around what their experiences with money has been. So that's just one of the many. And then I do something around pricing. The exercise, I have a whole exercise workbook on price, or worksheet on pricing, and saying, let's talk about how much money you want to make, but let's talk about why you want to make it. What is it going to do for you? Getting really, really clear and getting to the core of things. And I think I'm a coach first before I'm anything. So I'm always bringing people through that part of it before we get to the strategic part.
So once you go through that process of getting them situated with their brand, they've launched their Instagram, let's say, and things are going well, and then things start to not go so well. What strategies are there for pivoting?
Mm, that's a good question. I love that question. So I think so one of the things I do is I always tell my clients to measure things in 90 days. Measure it, look at it, and it's like, okay, maybe we need to make some tweaks. We make some tweaks. You measured another 90 days. Now, if you get to the place where you're like, listen, this is not doing what it's supposed to do. In terms of pivoting, now you have to make the decision. What do you want to pivot to? And it depends on what's not working. what a lot of times what people do is they burn it all down and they start from scratch. And I've learned personally and with working with my clients, that's not necessary. You don't have to burn it all down. But what you can do is look at it and go, you know what? This piece right here is not working. So instead of me trying to say, focus on growing my Instagram, right? Maybe what I'll do is I'll pivot to LinkedIn, right? Because depending on where we're saying your ideal clients are showing up and what it is that's happening, okay, maybe it's not Instagram like we initially determined them. Because I'm not going to say thought, because there's work that goes into figuring that out. Maybe we're going to pivot over here to Instagram. And not only we're going to pivot to Instagram, now we're going to roll in doing a weekly live stream, right? So it's taking these different things and just maybe pivoting part of it and not pivoting 100%. Maybe it's pivoting your message. So maybe now maybe your message it's not hitting the way you think it should be, or the way it should be, so you're not getting the results. So maybe we need to revisit your message. And then maybe now the bigger pivot would be, okay, maybe we need to just, totally stop doing this over here and start doing this over here. And a lot of times I don't think that that's totally necessary. I think that you could just make some of those specific tweaks to get you where you want to go, because burning it down and starting over is exhausting.
Yeah. Because a lot of work went into it in the first place. And now you're like starting from
Exactly.
scratch again.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Cheryl, tell us maybe one or two things that you want women to know, whether they're, again, trying to grow within their organization or they're trying to branch out on their own. Give us your top one or two tips of what we need to be doing, especially now as where it's 2025, everything's changing, technology's changing, things are growing. What's your top, two tips for us going forward?
I think you got to get really clear on what you want. Because a lot of us, we're not clear on what we want. We kind of stumbled into a lot of different things, be it our careers in corporate, or be it, maybe the type of businesses or we pursued. But I think you got to get really, really, really clear on what it is you really want in this season. Because this season, as you mentioned, Karen, 2025 in this season does not look like 10 years ago. It doesn't even look like 5 years ago. Right? So really taking the time to get really clear on what it is you want in this season. Maybe you're not 38 anymore. Maybe you just turned 50. So the things that you wanted in that season of being 38 might have changed when you turned 50. But you might not realize that if you don't sit and go, in this season, what do I want? In this season, who do I need to be to get it? In this season, what is available to help me make that happen? So I think those are three questions you can ask yourself right here, right now, today, no matter when you're watching or listening. And I think this is a part of this season. I think it's really important to be in community. I think being in community is really important in this season. We have isolated ourselves in so many ways. With as much connection in terms of social media, we are more isolated now than we have probably ever been. And I really think that's the missing component for a lot of us, especially women. I think we're nurturers. We're wired for connection. And I really think that putting yourself in a community, connecting to a community, something that lights you up, maybe if you love to travel or if you love knitting or if you love whatever, finding a community that you can be a part of. And I think that that is something that we're not doing enough of. And I think it's affecting us and impacting us even down to the building of our brands, the building of our personal brands, even like the personal brands that people are building now. Community is a big part of it. So I think connecting yourself to community, as you're building your own personal brand, I really, really think that's something that you really want to explore and begin to do.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, just personally being told, "Oh, you need to tap into your network." I'm a member of several organizations, and I don't tap into the network as much as I should. So it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that you're describing as part of that
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So KJ mentioned, again, 2025, here we are. And yes, we are in different seasons of our lives than we were. She and I are both in our 50s. We're totally different than we were in our 30s and totally different than we were in our 40s. And I'm knocking on 60. So, but we're also in a new technology age. She mentioned technology. And you talked about, the switch from Instagram to LinkedIn, and then we're in this technological age as well. So, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and AI? Using that as a tool
Oh,
for building a
yeah.
brand or for getting started or fixing some of the areas that where you're lacking.
I have been trying to come come up with or explore my position, if you will, on AI, especially as it relates to building your personal brand. I haven't totally landed on anything specific. However, I'll say a couple things about it. I'm noticing the use of AI to create AI twins. Um, and I'm not really sure how I really feel about that, because for someone that talks about showing up authentically, I'm having a little mental friction
Understood.
around an AI twin and showing up authentically. So for that particular thing, it's just something I've been paying attention to and watching, and I'm watching my reaction to it as I see it. But I haven't landed on anything yet. And part of the reason is because I've used AI to create some imagery of myself. So we see a lot of people now doing AI photo shoots, right? And what I'm noticing for myself is it likes to edit out the things that are authentic to me, which is my gap. It sees it as a flaw. And that really annoys me.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
that yeah,
That
that
makes
really
you who
annoys
you
me.
are. That's yeah.
It does. It does. And it feels like an erasure of who I am authentically. So that's why I have some mental friction around that. But but from a strategy standpoint, from a brainstorming standpoint, from a production standpoint, AI is, to me, it's top tier. It really is top tier because it allows you to organize your thoughts, your ideas. You're not having to um keep everything kind of like in your head, or you just write it down on paper and then you don't do anything with it. Like, I take a lot of notes because I just like doing that, but I take notes. I do a lot of note taking. I go, oh, I have thoughts and ideas. And I literally take it, I snap a picture, I put it in Chat GPT, and I tell it, one, to transcribe it. And then two, I start asking it questions. So it serves as something I can bounce things off of and get feedback. It doesn't replace, it just gives me a space to be able to process my thoughts in real time. Yeah. So those are just a couple things about AI. Overall, in terms of strategy and brainstorming, organizing thoughts, planning things, mapping things out, and then taking it and going, okay, now I have a framework that I can work with, and then I can go on from there.
So you would encourage your clients to use ChatGPT and other AI tools just to kind of brainstorm and to help them to kind of figure out the
Oh,
path.
absolutely. To brainstorm, to help with productivity. So when I say that, I mean, if we're doing some type of rollout of a offer, I could easily go to AI and say, okay, we want to roll this out. This is the date or thing, whatever is going to happen. You know, how far in advance should we be marketing? What type of content should we be using? Like being able to do things like that, I think is very, very productive and helpful. And it cuts down on the amount of time and back and forth. You got to figure it out on your own.
Cheryl, I do want to know, do you still like any of the, let's say, old school methods of trying to figure out what you want to do? Like some people love vision boards or, kind of writing things down or like the old poster board type things to do. Do you like that old school method of trying to figure out what you want to do? Is that still work, or is there anything that you think is better now when you think about, oh, you have to figure out what you love? If you wake up in the morning and you could do something for free all day, every day, what would it be? Would that vision board method still be good to do?
So, short answer, yes. Um, when it comes to vision boards, I think they're fun, but I think vision boards is an image driven reflection of your desires. And I've always maintained it that way. It has, to me, and this is my perspective, it doesn't have any magic power. It's a visual representation of what you desire. Now, what are you going to do with it? Right? So, as an old school method, yes, I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic because it allows us to process, those things about what we love and make the connection with the imagery of it. And I just think I'm very tactile in that way. That's why I still take handwritten notes to this day. Still, I got a notepad sitting right here full of notes because that interaction between me and my brain and me writing the notes means something. It means something. So the old school, yeah, I'm totally with it. Totally with it.
Yeah, because if you can see it, I know you said you're tactile, you like to touch. But if you can see it every day, then
Yes.
you can bring it to life because you're seeing it
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
So that's where the vision
Because
boards.
it's a reminder. It triggers that part of the brain that goes, "Hey, wait a minute. You said you wanted that. Now, what are you doing? What are you doing to get it? What are you doing to get it? What?" So yeah.
Any thoughts on self-care when it comes to branding? Is it
Oh,
tied in any way as you're doing that introspection, carrying out the project, and then pivoting if need be? Does self-care play a role in any way?
You guys ask the best questions, I swear.
Happy to hear it.
Absolutely. Self-care, I think a lot of times we have diminished self-care to pedicures and manicures and facials. And a young lady wrote a post on Instagram the other day, and I read it. It was such a heartfelt post, and she talked about how she just disappeared. She started this business. It was really hard. It had taken off. She was having great success, and she just disappeared because she herself, she was kind of, suffering in the process, if you will. And she said she just needed to go away, and she needed to just give herself space and grace and a place to just be. And I went in the comments and I wrote, healing is self-care. Self-care is healing. And I think we have to look at self-care as something more than manicures and pedicures and facials. We have to look at it as a part of our lifestyle. We have to look at it as part of what we're doing to heal um, unaddressed wounds and all, because that's a part of taking care of yourself. As you're going through this branding process, I have a planner that I created that's specific to branding. And in that planner, I have all the self-care things. So I have this thing called a weekly meeting with yourself and self-care. The questions are on there. Have you made an appointment for your mammogram? Have you made an appointment for your physical? What are you doing today to connect with others, to fill your cup? Have you planned a lunch date with one of your friends? I mean, all of those different things that help us, that feed our soul. Soul care, self-care, all of that is a big part of us and what we're building, and allows us to show up in ways that we didn't even think we could, because our cup is being filled because we're taking care of ourselves and we've made ourselves a priority in the process.
Yeah. All the work and no play.
Exactly. Makes for a dull, probably,
Life. And
yeah,
how
dull life.
and how can you build a brand without the play?
Well, exactly. Then you wind up in burnout. You wind up in total burnout and breakdown. Because this young lady that did that post on Instagram the other day, that's exactly what she expressed: burnout and breakdown.
So that's how you counsel those to avoid burnout by, the self-care, the fun, the light,
Absolutely.
get out there, go to the park and run around or take a
Absolutely.
vacation.
Absolutely.
How about that?
And whatever that looks like. So I have a couple things that I do, and that includes I'm always asking one of my friends around here to meet me for lunch or something, so there's that, going to museums, just doing something. Even and I'm the type of person where I don't have to do it with someone. I could do it by myself. It's fun when you do it with somebody else. But make time for you to just even go spend the afternoon sipping tea at a fancy restaurant or a fancy hotel. I love going to sit in hotel lobbies by myself and people watch. That's one of my favorite things to do, is how I met my husband, actually, but that's another story. Um so there's so many different things you can do, because it creates even more connection with those around you, but greater connection with yourself.
I love it. So we've heard a lot about introspection. We've heard a lot about mindset. Now we've heard about self-care. So you can coach in so many different areas. And I think that's wonderful. So what would you want our viewers and listeners just to take away from this whole discussion that we've been having today?
Well, what I want you to take away from this discussion is know and believe that you are brilliant. You are smart. You have everything you need on the inside of you to get where you want to go and whatever that looks like, because it looks different for everyone. And you don't have to subscribe to um, what everybody else says is success. You get to define that for yourself and give yourself the freedom to be able to do that in a way that feels true and authentic to you, because that's what personal brand is really about. Being able to show up in your truest and most healed and whole way.
Love it. That's wonderful. So how can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you if they say, you know what, I really like Cheryl. I like what she's saying. I like the path that she has her clients on. I'd like to work with her. How can they do that?
So I'm going to give you my website is totally being redone, being updated. And so there are a couple ways. I am Facebook is one way. I'm always there. So Cheryl is I am Cheryl Pullins is Facebook. And Instagram is Cheryl A. Pullins. I'm Cheryl A. Pullins on Instagram. And you can also just email me, Cheryl at hericonicempire.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot because I think the biggest takeaway for me is the introspection. You know, I'm one of these people who
Mm,
I don't wait to do something. If something pops in my brain, it's like I just go and jump in. But that may not be the best strategy. Actually, it isn't the best strategy. So you got to start
mm,
with
mm,
looking within to
mhm,
see. So
mhm,
I
mhm.
thank you so much for that, and I'm sure that our listeners and viewers appreciate that as well.
My pleasure. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure to be with you ladies, and I appreciate you inviting me to share with you today.
Thank you. That was really a great discussion. I'm telling you, as I am in the process of developing or redeveloping my personal and business brand, it was really good to hear some of the things that she had to offer, especially when it comes to introspection. That's like a step I have a tendency to skip. So I might need to go back and do some digging on the inside.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have met Cheryl through Instagram. And she's a person that I wanted to connect with because I believe right now we've been hearing that word brand, brand, brand so much. And for me, being in retail, growing up, branding was always like a globally known brand, you know, let's say a beauty brand or something that everyone has heard of around the world. That would be a brand. But now we've gotten to the point where I noticed that when reality TV took off and you started watching reality TV and the stars, and they were always talking about, oh, I'm a brand and I have to do X, Y, and Z to match my brand. That's when it really became, I think, crystal clear that we're all going to have a brand at some point. So don't think of branding as just some globally known brand or a celebrity, but now it's you. When you're thinking about your resume and your cover letter, it's almost like you're having to put who you are and your whole brand and beliefs on paper so that the company knows what you stand for and what you're about and what you've done. So it was nice to know that that term brand now it means like for you personally and who you are, who your authentic self is what Cheryl, kept saying. But I love that she broke it down and made it clear for us to understand what it means to be a brand in this day and age and, now going forward.
Because we live in this world of social media, I think like you said, we're all kind of building a brand, whether we know it or not. there was a time when my son, who was in the swim world, he was swimming. He started swimming when he was 9 and swam all the way through high school. The only thing that I was posting on my Facebook were his swim meets, his swim accomplishments, his me in the swim world, me in the stands. It was like all about swim, 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 swim. And now I realize that that became my personal brand. I became the swim mom on social media, to the point where when someone was going to get into swim, there were people who were saying, "Oh, you need to talk to Sonji. You need to talk to Sonji," because like that was the brand that I unknowingly built about myself. So I think we need to really think about that in this social media world, that the things that you're posting are actually contributing to your brand, whether you know it or not. It's real interesting.
I agree. I think that a lot of my friends are always asking me questions about beauty.
See?
And it's like, well, that's your background. That's what you're always talking about. So, yes, we do get affiliated with whatever we're, talking about most. And it's funny that, when Cheryl was talking about what is that thing that you can do and really not care about the money, but it's more of the passion of it. And for me, I think that's always, I've known it's been beauty since I was 5. That's my jam. That's my love, you know.
Yeah, and that's where that saying comes from, do what you love and money will follow.
Yes.
Or the other question is, what would you do if you weren't getting paid? What would you be willing to do, as a profession, and be totally happy with it?
Yeah.
So
For
that
me, it
that's
would
the
go
question.
be going and talking about beauty and just, people would think I'm crazy, but I would stop them. Did you know that this?
Right. So that's your brand. So now we have the steps to build our brand professionally, now that we've heard from Cheryl, and she's kind of given us the blueprint to build the brand. So you and the beauty, you can build that beauty brand professionally.
Yeah, I'm
So
I'm really happy to have had her on, and I love her background, especially again being HR and then going into being a brand strategist. That's genius to me because she really knows the ins and outs and what to look for and knows what to coach her clients on. So to me, that makes her, a really, like, she really is the icon activator.
definitely, because not only just the steps of building a brand, putting on a website, putting out your social media, doing all those things, but developing that mindset, um, and the introspection, and then we talked about the self-care. That's something a lot of people don't think about when you're building a brand. Um, we get it, especially as women. We work, we work, we work, we work, we work. We have husbands, we have kids, and then you're trying to build a brand, and then there's no time for you. Okay, well, you need to do some self-care, because then you're not going to be successful, and then you may have to pivot, as we talked about. So I like the fact that she covers all of that, not just the do this, do that. It's going also on the inside. So that's wonderful.
And I would say my biggest takeaway from her is that don't undersell yourself. And I think we always hear that as women. We love to, I think, help people and do for people. And it's not about the money, it's more about just that nurturer in us. But also, you do not want to be underpaid. And I think about my career personally, and I've done that so many times where it's like, oh, I just want this position, because I am a leader and I can do XYZ, but not putting that price tag on there like I needed to. So I love that she talked about that. Don't undersell yourself. Make sure that you are being paid your worth and extra. Because we always put in, doesn't matter male or female, we put extra in when we go to work. Everyone does, because you're there and you're like, oh, I don't want to leave this undone. We're caring people. That's us as human beings. So if you know that you're going to do a job and then you're always going to do that little extra, don't undersell yourself.
Is so important, such a big thing. And I'm so glad that she brought that up. I'll tell you a quick personal story. There was a time early in my career, early way back when I first started working in television, where I was doing the exact same job as another person. And I mean, identical job. And that person was making double what I was making. I remember I was just outraged, like just fussing and complaining and whining about it. And I had this one person say to me, "Stop, stop. This is what you negotiated. The salary that you have is what you negotiated and what you accepted. That person wasn't willing to accept that. So stop. This is on you." And I remember at first I was taken aback, but then I was like, he's right. This is what I negotiated and I accepted for me. Never made that mistake again. Never made that mistake again. And nor could I use the excuse, because I was saying, but I didn't know. I didn't know. Well, the fact that I didn't know, again, on me. That was on me that I didn't know. So I love the fact that she talked about knowing your worth, knowing your worth, knowing your value, and only selling yourself or putting yourself out there at the high value that you know that you are. I love that. We hope you found our conversation as insightful and thought-provoking as we did. If you like the show, please subscribe to our show. If you're listening to us on one of the podcast platforms, you can also text the show. We always love hearing from you.
Please make sure that you follow our website. It is girlieladies.com. There you can also see the contributor section, and you will find guest speakers like Cheryl. You'll be able to read about them and also see their websites and social media pages. We also are on Instagram. So we are at Girlie Ladies, and I have my own Instagram at the KJB Effect.
And you can find me at Digital with Sonji on Instagram and at Sonji Cosby on Facebook, TikTok, and all of the other social media platforms. So in the meantime, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most of all, keep growing. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.